Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Growth Shift. I'm Jennifer from Stile AI Solutions, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for another episode where we explore the ideas, strategies, and stories that drive real growth and measurable impact. Today, I'm excited to welcome Kate White, the Chief Marketing Officer at Glazer Children's Museum, one of Tampa's most innovative family learning and discovery spaces. Kate, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to diving into your background, hearing about trends and shifts you're seeing in the museum. To kick things off, Kate, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your role and about the museum.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today. My role at the Glazer Children's Museum is Chief Marketing Officer, so I run the marketing and creative department. That's really fun because we do all of the marketing to make sure that folks know about what's going on at the museum and guests can fully enjoy all of our offerings. But we also get to do all the creative that takes place, not only the graphic design and things like that to create the ads and videography that we use in marketing, but we also get to support the storytelling for the fundraising. We get to support the exhibits and do all of the creative that takes place inside the exhibits and all the programs and help with the curriculum and things like that. So that's a really fun way for us to get to be a little creative and dabble in parts that are outside of the marketing world for my department. So that's very fulfilling. But overall, I also serve as a member of the leadership team. So there's a lot of strategic work that goes into that, like strategic planning, which we did a few years ago. And so we've been using that strategic plan that we created as kind of a guiding light, if you will, a North Star for the last few years. So I've been able to be a part of the strategic discussions at the leadership level. And then that's so valuable because I'm then able to implement it amongst the team, as the leader of the marketing department. So that's a really nice way for those two areas to work together, the business side of things and the creative side of things, which is really nice. My background is actually in the hospitality and tourism industry. I started in Orlando and worked in every hospitality role you can think of in my early career, in events and conventions, at theme parks and hotels and restaurants, really kind of understanding that guest experience, visitor experience side of things, which I really loved and enjoyed. My undergraduate degree is in hospitality management from the Rosen College of Hospitality at UCF, which is not too far from us, so from Tampa to Orlando. So that was kind of how I got my start in that world. And what I didn't realize then, but I know now, is that was the beginning of my introduction to the power of play, because I was working in one of the places where people travel from all over the world to come play, in Orlando, at the theme park capital of the world. And really learning how to make sure people are enjoying themselves and leaving their worries behind. And what I didn't know then, but I know now, that has become a through line in my career. So when I kind of switched over to the leadership side of things, I got my MBA and I started working, kind of on the managerial side of things. I kind of started to find myself gravitating more towards museums and attractions side of the industry. So I landed at one point at a children's museum in Raleigh, North Carolina, called Marbles Kids Museum. And that was the first time I had kind of been introduced. This was before I had children of my own. So it was the first time I was introduced to kind of the magic of the power of play before, after having been a child myself, right? So as an adult, kind of seeing that glimpse. And so I started to learn at Marbles, where I spent a few years. I started to learn the power of play in early learning and childhood development. And reflecting back on my career in the industry of, fun and play and making sure people are having a great time on their vacations or on their conventions and conferences, it made me realize, of course, it all starts in childhood. It all starts with play. And that really is what made me fall in love with the children's museum space. So after my time at Marbles Kids Museum in Raleigh, I wanted to get back to Florida. So I moved back home and I ended up in Tampa. And that's when I got the job at the Glazer Children's Museum, running the marketing department there. And it's really become such an important part of my life and my story, having worked there for the last 9 years, because it's really given me exposure to the experts in the field of early childhood play and really helped me understand that through line of the importance of play in early childhood and how those benefits carry with us for the rest of our lives. And so now I look at my career no longer as an opportunity to just welcome people in to have fun, but I understand deep down the significance of it, the healing power of play. Play is respite from stress. Play is a powerful tool for developmental growth and progress in early childhood. And so it's really kind of set me on a new mission, and that is to pursue igniting this passion in the power of play with everyone else around me. So that's where the marketing piece of my role comes in so nicely, because that's my mission every day, is to be out doing things like this that I'm talking about today. And even though we're talking about the business side of things, I'm going to figure out a way to bring it back to the power of play, because that is kind of the passion that's been lit inside me because of being at the Glazer Children's Museum and at Marbles Kids Museum before that. This industry is really special.
Sounds like you truly, truly enjoy what you're doing. You said you've been at the museum for 9 years. How has your approach to engaging families and schools and community groups changed over those 9 years from when you got started 9 years ago to kind of now, today?
Yeah, my approach has definitely evolved, especially because there is a really unique, approach you have to take when you're working with our audience, right? Because it's not a very vague audience. It's a very, very specific audience. We serve children from birth to 10. And so from a marketing perspective, that means our audience is the parents of children ages birth to 10, and that demographic changes very, very quickly. So even in just the fact that I've been here for 9 years, the people who have children in the age of our demographic right now are different than those were 10 years ago, 9 years ago, and their behaviors are different now too. So my approach to marketing has evolved because I have to keep a really close tab on how my audience has evolved, and I have to follow them. So one perfect example is 9 years ago, it was all about Facebook. We parents were on Facebook. That's where everyone was. Instagram existed, but Facebook was the one where parents really were. I will say this about our audience: they move a little slower on social media to new platforms than other audiences do because they're busy. They have children at home. They don't have time to develop a new skill with social media. So they're a little bit of slower movers. So they were on Facebook when everybody else was on Instagram. And we find now that the majority of our audience are engaging with us on Instagram. And we do still have active engagement on Facebook, and our engagement is the least on TikTok. But I'm also keeping an eye on that because I know that that's going to shift in the next few years, because for me, I have to keep an eye on what generationally and demographically, when are folks having children and aging into the time where they can come and play at the museum, right? Because obviously a newborn probably can't play, but a 1-year-old could definitely come and run around and play all the way up until their children age out of the system. And of course, there are people who are having children older and younger and don't meet those typical demographics. But there is some stuff we can learn from census data and just observing the trends of our audience to understand where they like to get their information. And then that's where we have to meet them. We want to be a space where we can provide a nice complementary play experience to the other fundamental experiences in their life, which for most children are home and school. And so, or preschool, or whatever their spaces are. And so we're not here to replace school, of course. They have to learn. We're here to enhance what they learn at school, or to prepare them for school by getting them playing and confident and building those skills that they may not even realize they're building through play before they're even ready to enter school. So it matters what's happening in the child's home life, and it matters what's happening in the child's school life for us to be a complementary part of that. So of course, technology is something we keep an eye on, and screens is something we keep an eye on. We're a very analog museum. We rely very little on technology for our exhibits and our experience. We want everything to be levers that you touch and pull, sensory experience, cause and effect. You're not going to find a bunch of screens in our museum. There's a place for technology-based museums, and I'm really excited those exist. But because of our specific niche role in our area and how we serve our families, that's pretty specific to children's museums and the way that we step forward in our community to serve families. We want to make sure that we're providing something that complements those other experiences, right? So I don't mean to talk bad about technology and exhibits. I love technology and a lot of exhibits, but for us, we want to make sure we're a place where children can unplug, where parents unplug, where families connect together. We do a lot of really intentional design in the way our exhibits are laid out so that it's encouraging child-led play. So the child is the one who first discovers what's around the next corner and runs off to, do their adventures, and the parent kind of follows the child's lead. That's really important for sparking imagination and curiosity in the child. So we were very intentional about curating our space to encourage family learning. We often have a toddler space alongside a bigger kid area because we know parents often have children of different ages so that the entire family can be experiencing the space together. We also do really special arts and crafts that require things like scissors and hot glue guns in our make space. And we empower the kids, of course, to use these tools, but with their parents, with their caregivers. And that's important because that teaches collaboration and family bonding together as they build. And so we think about what the trends that are happening in a family's life, in a child's life, and then we try to make sure offering a complementary experience that allows them to unplug from the stresses of day-to-day life and find respite in the power of play.
You've mentioned power of play and the family togetherness and all these great things that are happening at the museum. What is something that's really working very well in your marketing strategy that you want to continue to build on?
That's a great question. I have been taking some time to evaluate in our local market. We know travel is down right now with international travel and even, domestic travel to the state of Florida. So we definitely want to make sure that we're really focused on our local audience because those are the people we serve. That we serve, I think it's something like 80% of our local county. 80% of our audiences comes from our local county. So we really want to focus on that audience for a while, and make sure that they're feeling heard. But we also want to make sure that the people in the drive market who maybe usually travel further away still want to be able to have a little time off, can kind of come and visit from somewhere else in the state of Florida, right? So our recent approach has been making sure that the local audience in Hillsborough County, people who've never visited the museum before, understand what's inside our building and aren't intimidated by driving downtown and parking and navigating. Downtown locations can be scary for some. So we've been focusing on that messaging while also making sure that we extend that messaging to the entire state of Florida because we kind of know people are choosing to travel a little bit closer to home these days. And so I wanted to ask myself, and we kind of asked our team, our board of directors, and sampled our audience with like, what are the common things that we hear from people about why they might not have ever come to the museum or their reactions when they first come to the museum. And in market, in our county, it seems to be the biggest thing is someone comes into our museum and says, "Wow, I didn't know all of this was in here." They knew we were there, they knew what we did, but they just did not realize the true scale of the imagination and creativity that's inside our building and the sheer size of our exhibits and things like that. So that really got us thinking, okay, so we need to make sure that people know it's worth coming and it's worth coming all day. This is a real experience because it is hard to get people inside our doors to show them that when they're outside, right? So how do we bridge that gap? And so we started a campaign in market that's called Play All Day. And it showcases a lot of pictures of the variety of stuff going on in the museum, all families playing together. And that's really to encourage families to understand there's so much you can do for an entire day here at the museum. And then the out of market drive market that we're serving the rest of the state of Florida, we're doing a similar campaign, but it's big enough for your child's imagination and close enough for a day trip. So we really looked at what are our audience pain points. And in market, it's, hey, I didn't realize how amazing this was, and it's worth coming downtown. We know being downtown and having to park in one-way streets is a pain point, but there's nothing we can do about that. So how do we solve the perception of that? So that's the approach we took, and that has been very successful. And then simultaneously with the drive market, it's also, letting them know we're here because you're in another town, if on the other side of the state or something, letting them know we're here and also we're with the trip.
How are you doing that?
It's right now we're doing digital because it allows us to be really nimble. One thing with the drive market and the local market is that we do a lot of holiday seasonal things that might draw them. So we need to be nimble and be able to switch out artwork to create something new that causes a reason to come now. So we might still have that same tagline that I described before, but have artwork that conveys some of our holiday activities or Halloween just passed, our Halloween activities. So we're focusing on digital in order to be able to be as nimble as possible, one. And then the other reason is because of the demographic of our audience. They're really on digital. So lots of meta ads, but then, We also do some further reaching things where we partner with other organizations like Visit Tampa Bay to extend the reach of our region as an overall attraction.
Sure. Okay. That's great. So, on the flip side, every organization faces some roadblocks. What have been some of the biggest kind of marketing or growth challenges you've seen recently?
Well, for us, there are a lot of interesting things we have to keep track of. The amount of people who are having children is going down, you know? So that's an interesting roadblock we keep an eye on. But on the flip side of that, the amount of families moving to Tampa Bay are going up. So we're still getting an increase in the amount of children we can, serve. So these are kind of interesting things that you have to keep an eye on, but there's a lot of fluctuation in them. So I think that the key is we just can't be too inflexible, right? I've used the word nimble already to describe it, and I think that's the key for our particular audience. One of the big challenges that we're facing right now is kind of some unknowns with consumer spending. We're seeing a lot of people slowing down on, visitation across museums and attractions. People are still coming, which is wonderful. And we offer lots of programs for financial access for people who might need assistance to be able to visit so that that isn't a roadblock for them. But we are seeing a trend where people are opting to stay home. People are opting to do the free alternatives. And then for the museum, us specifically located in the state of Florida, we also have the challenge of the weather. So these roadblocks matter because it really just means that we have an audience that fluctuates a lot based on these types of things. If there's a hurricane that affects the museum, of course, but even much smaller than that, if it's really, really, really hot in the summer, the museum is very, very, very busy. But if we hit beautiful weather, then people don't want to come to the museum because it's been hot all summer and now they want to be outside. So for us, it's not one specific roadblock as much as just kind of keeping an eye on all these things. What's going on with the weather? What trends are happening with travel? Are families tending to spend more time out? Watch birthday party trends. Are people throwing birthday parties at parks and attractions, or are they just hosting them at home? Because all of those things can change the way we approach marketing.
Right, right. I was going to say, how do they impact the day-to-day operations or long-term goals? All these unknowns.
Well, we have to take them on one at a time, really.
Yeah.
I mean, so a lot of it is trying to figure out, okay, what's stopping a family member here or families from participating in this. Sometimes it's us saying, okay, maybe this isn't what our audience wants, and we're trying to offer a program that our audience doesn't need or want. And then we have to take a moment to say, okay, we need to, cut it and try again or try it in a different way. And we need to be able to adapt. An example of our audience having kind of varying needs and us having to have really got our finger on the pulse is schools out days. So random days, well, they're not random, they're intentional, but days that might be where a child has off school, but the parent is still at work. Those are an interesting day. That's an example of us adapting. We used to offer these really fun, robust workshops that were like Saturday afternoons. You could drop your kid off for an hour or two, learn to code, do really fun things like that. They were very poorly attended. We switched it. Now we offer schools out camps on the days where children are out of school and parents are working. And it stays like, Veterans Day or, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, days where some parents may still have to work. We offer those as drop-off camps. And now those programs are really well attended. They've got great reviews. They're beloved in the community. So it was us really having a finger on the pulse of all these little changes that I was describing to you, from the weather to parenting trends to the newest video game that's come out, to people being scared about vaccinations. I mean, all of these things involve children and families. So we have to keep our finger on the pulse. And
Being
then we have to
nimble,
try to
like you
meet those
said.
needs. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're to look ahead, where do you want Glazer Children's Museum to be in the next 6 to 12 months in terms of audience growth and engagement? Knowing that there's all these kind of pieces that you're working with, all these numbers that are impacting it.
That's a great question. Thank you. I mean, we definitely have great loyal audience in our community of people who know exactly the value of play. And so they spend a lot of time at the museum. There are super users. They come and hang out with us all the time, and that's fabulous. We've got a lot of new faces that we see regularly, but we are in a huge school district. We are in a very big an area with lots and lots and lots of children. So of course, my goal is to continue to serve new audiences both through field trips and through family visits. I want to make sure that we're serving people and providing them a place for respite and play and joy and connectivity. So that's something that I really want to see, but a way that I'm really excited that we're going to do that. It's one of the pillars of our strategic plan, one of our goals, and that's to ignite a shared passion in our community for the power of play. And so instead of just saying come play at the museum and trying to entice people in because we have fun stuff going on, my real work and my real goal is to spread the understanding of why play matters so much so that we've got families playing. Hopefully that means they're coming to the museum playing, but if they're playing at home, if they're playing at other attractions, if they're going to the beach and playing, then my goal has been met, because ultimately we want to raise a generation of children who have these values and skills that we know can be developed through play, and so that the next generation is set up for more success and thriving than previous generations. And we're really excited about some groundbreaking work we're doing in the field of character development in early childhood. We have a framework called Play Builds Character, and we're working on, programs where we use play as a tool to help families. We're really, rather, a better way to describe it is that we're teaching parents how to use play as a tool so that they can raise their children using the power of play to help them teach character skills, everything from honesty to perseverance, a strong sense of self, and we're encouraging families to choose those values for themselves, and showing them how to do that. So I would say success is spreading that knowledge throughout our community. And then, I mean, attendance will follow. People will come to the museum, of course, but the more important thing is that they're out there playing and they're raising their children with a play-based childhood.
What do you think would help you spread that power of play message faster, more efficiently?
Well, the museum is a nonprofit organization, so we rely on the generous donations of our community, as well as admission tickets, and camp registrations, rental fees for birthday parties and things like that. So for us, the biggest thing to amplify our message is always going to be, be able to amplify it further with a bigger budget. So we're always fundraising, and there's a lot of ways that people can support the museum, both to amplify things like our marketing efforts, but also to specifically support some of the important programs, like the one I was talking about, where we're using Play Builds Character framework to teach parents how to raise their children to thrive. So fundraising is a really important piece of what we do. I partner with our development office, who's our fundraising team, to make sure we're creating compelling narratives, beautiful stories via video storytelling, and things like that help to capture the essence of what we do, so that that team can be out fundraising in the community. Because ultimately, as all nonprofits know, that's really the energy that fuels us and keeps us being able to do this mission.
All great stuff. So, if you're to look back, what's one key lesson you've learned about marketing for a nonprofit museum? Something you wish you had known earlier, maybe.
A great question. For me personally, because of the size of the institution that I'm at, and we're a very locally based institution, it would be understanding the key relationships in the community have to do with not only knowing people, but being consistent over time. One thing I've found that's wonderful being at a nonprofit, we may not get to do as many of those pay to play opportunities for TV appearances and, being on the morning shows and things like that. But because I've developed really strong relationships with the producers of those shows over the years, and I've consistently jumped in. If they have a last minute cancellation and they give me a call, I make sure to clear my schedule and go. Those kind of things have been really helpful, because what it's done, and my longevity at the organization, being there for 9 years, has really allowed me to create some key relationships to where people know I'm reliable and people know I have a good story to tell. People know now that the museum is doing good work in the community, and that's why I want to promote it, And so that trust that you build up with your network of folks in the local media, and in the local publications and at the other attractions, my peers at the other attractions in our industry, that all of that stuff like brings us all up together.
This has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners find you online and learn more about the Glazer Children's Museum?
Yes, absolutely. We're at glazermuseum.org, or our handles on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. It's just Glazer Children's Museum.
Okay,
Very simple.
fantastic.
I'm personally on LinkedIn at Playfully Kate, where I try to post a lot of stuff about the museum and about the power of.
Thank you again, Kate, for being here and sharing your story. I really, really enjoyed hearing about the museum and all of your insights. Thank you.